Gothic horror stories are my jam. So when writer Sarah Pinsker asked if I wanted to collaborate on a story set in the bell tower of Notre-Dame, the answer was yes, before I even read the concept. The original manuscript is actually available for free on her blog. And if you like this format, there will be more to come. Our story begins in Paris, in the year 1892. Our protagonist is 17-year-old Claire, who is the apprentice of an aging clockmaker. And she has heard some rumors about the old bell tower of Notre-Dame, which is currently abandoned. Apparently, people have been seeing what they call the weeping shadow, and the weird thing is, it seems to be tied to the bells somehow. So Claire's boss sends her up into the tower to investigate. Upon entering, we immediately see that the bells have been destroyed, but not just any bells. These are called the carillon, and they were installed way back in the Middle Ages. They haven't been rung in nearly 30 years, because apparently, the night they stopped ringing, the bell ringer, a man named Lazarus, choked on his own screams and died. That's according to the old priest that lives in the tower. He's pretty much blind and coughing a lot. Maybe he's also half dead. While repairing the clock face, Claire notices that the gargoyles seem to be staring directly at her, and then, as midnight strikes, she sees something really creepy. She looks at the clock tower, and her reflection is stuck in the gears, frozen in a smile. Even after she moves away, the reflection stays there, smiling. The bell tower was built between 1644 and 1648, during the reign of Louis XIV. This era is sometimes referred to as the Golden Age of France, and it's interesting that the bells fell silent during the dark days of World War I. But the story doesn't take place during that time. It takes place after World War II. As she continues fixing the clock, she finds some writing carved into the gears. It says quasi-mortuus, which means half-dead in Latin. And right then the gargoyles start to turn their heads so that they are now facing inwards towards the clock tower. Claire wants to get out of there, but the door is locked from the outside, and then she hears a whisper coming from the bells. It says, "They called me monster until I became one." Then she hears footsteps and runs to hide behind the clock face. We don't get to see who or what it is that is haunting the tower, but based on the descriptions we're given, I can imagine that it would look something like this. When the sun comes up, Claire manages to escape the tower and make her way down to the street below. She looks back at the tower and sees the gargoyles have turned to face outwards once again. But something else has changed. Something she lost earlier. Her locket is now sticking out from between the ribs of the biggest bell. This bell is known as the bourdon, and it is the largest of the ancient set. It weighs 17 tons, and it hasn't been rung in nearly 100 years. Until now, because as the sun rises, it is revealed that the bell has cracked open, and that the sound that Claire heard was the spirit of Lazarus escaping. And that brings us to our final scene. Claire's boss shows up and asks how everything went. Claire tells him that she found the gargoyles to be very realistic, and then she asks him to touch the bell so that he can hear its sound. The boss thinks that's a silly idea, but does it anyway. The sound of the bells can be heard throughout Paris, and those who heard it said that they saw two figures, one straight and one crooked, vanishing into the sound. So the story ends with a bang, both literally and figuratively. I thought this was a really creative story, and I loved the illustrations that Sarah provided with it. We had a lot of fun collaborating on this project, and we hope that you enjoyed it as well. If you did, please consider dropping a like or subscribing. In addition to writing novels and screenplays, Sarah is also the host of the podcast Writer Files, which explores the untold stories behind famous authors and their works. You can find the link to the podcast in the description. I chose to set this story in an abandoned part of Notre-Dame because it's such an iconic location and because it's rumored to be haunted. There are over 250 documented cases of paranormal activity at Notre-Dame, including moving shadows, shaking scaffolding, disembodied voices, shaking bells. Yeah, bells are a common theme here. And while I was researching the legend of Lazarus, who is the bell ringer in our story, I came across another legend about a hunchback who lived in the bell tower and whose soul was trapped there after he died. And that got me thinking, why not combine these legends? In the original manuscript, the hunchback character is female. In this adaptation, I changed her name from Lorette to Lazarus, and I also made him male. I did this because I think it makes sense that the ghost of the hunchback would be trapped in the bell tower. He was actually the bell ringer, and if he could be any kind of monster, it would be a literal monster. In the novel, the hunchback is described as having a clubfoot and being covered in soot, which are details that I took out because they weren't relevant to the story and they felt a little too on the nose. If you want to read the original story, I will leave a link to the website below. One of my favorite details in the story is the line, "He choked on his own screams." That is such a haunting way to go. I actually thought this story was pretty scary, but hey, let me know what you thought in the comments. The author, Sarah Pinsker, has written several other horror novellas, and I actually just finished reading one of them, The Shiver, which is also excellent. It's about a woman who is hired to test out a haunted house, and it's very atmospheric. I feel like I should mention that I do not own the rights to the story that I just read. All I did was narrate it. But if you would like to support the channel, you can buy a copy of the book through the link in the description. Speaking of supporting the channel, I want to say a special thank you to our top patrons. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.